King Saul is on his way back from the battle. The prophet Samuel has had a sleepless night interceding to God on Saul's behalf due to God now regretting he had appointed him king. Samuel wakes up early to meet Saul. I'm Ken Godevanis, and together we're digging for scriptural gems as we study 1 Samuel chapter 15, verses 12 to 16. Somehow, Samuel was told that Saul had stopped at Carmel, and he set up a monument for himself there before heading back down to Gilgal. And David Guzik says this, quote, "This also shows that Saul was not the same humble man who once had a humble opinion of himself." Check that out in 1 Samuel chapter 9, verse 21. Or the man who once hid among the equipment out of shyness. 1 Samuel chapter 10, verse 22. No, the years, the military victories, and the prestige of the throne of Israel all revealed the pride in Saul's heart. End of quote. Commentator Poole adds, quote, "The truth is, Saul was zealous for his own honor and interest, but lukewarm where God was concerned." End of quote. Robert Jameson adds more background to this monument that Saul erected to himself. He writes, "He set him up a place that is a pillar." And we get the word pillar coming from 2 Samuel chapter 18, verse 18, which literally means a hand, indicating that whatever was the form of the monument, it was surmounted according to the ancient fashion by the figure of a hand, the symbol of power and energy. The erection of this vainglorious trophy was an additional act of disobedience for Saul. His pride had overborne his sense of duty in first raising this monument to his own honor, and then going to Gilgal to offer sacrifice to God. End of quote. When the two men met, Saul was very upbeat and greeted Samuel as follows: "Blessed are you of the Lord. I have carried out the command of the Lord." End of quote. One of the questions that we may ask ourselves is, did Saul really believe that he had totally fulfilled God's command? Some think it is possible given how vain he was. I personally feel that people know when they haven't scored well in following God's commands to them. And it's my guess that Saul detected how Samuel may have been feeling, perhaps from the sad expression on his face, or perhaps from the evidence of a long night of crying out to God and no sleep. Some things we just can't hide, not even if Estee Lauder herself was our makeup artist. And there are times when we shouldn't try to hide certain things from those we love as well as others. In his opening comments to the prophet, Saul tries to praise Samuel to get on his good side, and at the same time to get it out there that he had indeed followed God's command. "Nice try, Your Majesty, but not so fast," says Samuel. "If that's the case, why do I hear sheep and oxen in the background?" Now, Saul's reply is interesting. He shifts the blame to his men. Quote, "They have brought them from the Amalekites." End of quote. Not "I have brought them," but "they." And then he goes on to justify their action by saying they brought the best animals to the Lord, and get this, the Lord, your God. "And the rest of the animals we have utterly destroyed," he says. Two things to note right away, but very typical of Saul. First, it's always about him or about something that includes him when describing the positive. "I have followed God's command," and "we have utterly destroyed the other animals." But it's always about others when describing things that shouldn't have happened. "They," or "my men," have brought the good animals back. Do you know anyone like that? I'm sure if you start listening to people carefully, you'll soon recognize some. And maybe we even need to start listening to ourselves. Second, when talking about God, Saul's choice of words makes it clear that his relationship with the Almighty is very much a surface one. With reference to the animals to be used for sacrifices, he tells Samuel they are to be used for sacrifices to the Lord. And get this, your God. Not our God or my God, but your God, Samuel. At least that's the translation of the New American Standard Bible and almost all of the other versions I consulted. Only the NET says our. And then Samuel seems to have heard enough and stops him in his tracks, either from saying anything more or from continuing on his way. Samuel says, "Wait, and let me tell you what the Lord said to me last night." And Saul says, "Okay." Some suggest that wait was really, "Oh, just be quiet." Or as we are not allowed to say around our house, "Oh, just shut up." Although we can get away with, "Shut up, please." Anyway, Gusick adds some thoughts on this. But even in this, he says, and I quote, Saul can't shut up. He shows his proud desire to retain some control by replying, "Speak on, Samuel," as if the prophet of God needed Saul's permission. Samuel would speak on, but not because Saul gave him permission. He would speak on because he was a messenger of God. End of quote. So what's the big lesson or lessons for us from this passage? I think there are two lessons here for me, at least. The first has to do with others. Christians talk a lot about the gift of discernment. I believe one major type of discernment is being able to perceive the genuine intentions or heart of another person to the degree it is possible for another human to do so. And I believe that we can do the best of discerning when listening to those that claim to be believers, to see how often they talk or mention their own personal relationship with Jesus Christ. Athletes, movie stars, and prisoners who claim conversion after having a very terrible life come to mind as prime examples where, while they're all caught up in the hype of faith, it may all be just surface deep. I'm not saying it always is, but I am saying we need to be very careful that we don't lay hands on people like that as having experienced a real rebirth all too quickly. That is what I believe 1 Timothy chapter 5, verse 22 is all about. You can check that out. The second big lesson for me is a lesson about me. I need to listen to me. I need to listen to me to see if I make excuses for my disobedience. Do I blame others? Do I fail to communicate my love for and relationship with Jesus Christ? If so, I need to do something about it now. I don't need to learn from others that they feel that way about me. For that may take a while, or worse still, it may never happen, and I'll never discover it. Next time, we'll see what exactly Samuel passes on to Saul and how well that goes down. Join us for that. Please subscribe to our YouTube channels so you don't miss any episodes. Please share these videos with others in these Bible studies. Please write to us, answer our questions, ask your own questions, and above all, it's my hope that you keep studying God's Word.